book programme. Presented by Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now from the UK is Debbie Howells. After self-publishing 3 women's commercial fiction novels, Debbie wrote The Bones of You, her first psychological thriller. It was a Sunday Times bestseller and picked for the Richard and Judy Book Club. 3 more have followed: The Beauty of the End, The Death of Her, and Her Sister's Lie. After a number of career changes, Debbie now writes full-time, and her new book is called The Vow. The wedding day never happened, but the funeral might. Welcome to the book show, Debbie.
Thanks so much, Hannah. Lovely to be here.
It's great to have you with us. So I'm interested about your first books that you did and why you changed from kind of women's commercial fiction into psychological thrillers. Does that sort of sit better with you now?
It does now. At the time, writing women's commercial fiction felt a very natural fit. I wrote my first 2 books under a pen name because I was running my own business at the time. I had a wedding flower business, and I was kind of keeping the 2 strands of my life separate. But I wrote my third book in my own name called Wildflowers, and I sent it out to agents, and I had an amazing response, actually. I had 6 agents ask to read the full manuscript. I don't know whether you're aware, but if you send a book out to a literary agent, they ask for a cover letter, a synopsis, and the first 3 chapters of your book. And then if they're interested enough, they'll ask to read the rest. I got used to a lot of rejections at that point, but when I sent Wildflowers out, I had 6 agents ask to read the whole manuscript.
Wow.
And it was a book I'd poured heart and soul into, if I'm honest. And all 6 passed, which was a week of
oh gosh,
ups and downs. And I just thought, I love that. I still to this day love that book. And anyway, I self-published it. It sold well. It's got lovely reviews. But I thought, if I'm after the traditional publishing deal, I'm going to have to write something different. So that was when I sat down and started writing The Bones of You. And I had this idea about a very a horrible narcissistic male character and a family dynamic. And I'd started trying to write this book probably 2 or 3 times, and I just hadn't found the way to tell the story. But anyway, this was September 2013. I did find the way, and I wrote it very quickly, and things went on from there, really.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. You wrote a book because you thought that pretty much gave you more chance of getting it published, as opposed to writing the kind of book that you really wanted to write, which you started off with. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the impetus to change genres. But that said, once I sort of felt, once I started writing that book, I had such a story I wanted to tell that it completely took over.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as cold and calculated as it might sound, but it's, yeah, I mean, I think the key to any success with writing is you have to write a good book, you have to hit the market at the right time, and you have to find an agent and then a publisher who see that as well. And you know, it's luck. Luck is a big part.
Yeah. So now you're writing psychological thrillers. Have you thought of going back to women's commercial fiction at all?
I have 1 or 2 ideas I'm working on, actually, alongside. Thrillers are obviously first and foremost. But yes, I have not given up on that.
Okay. Good for you. So let's talk about The Vow, the latest book. And interesting that you used to work with, write books and work with flowers and things, because there's a flower on the front cover, isn't there?
Yes. Yes.
So tell us about some of the characters in The Vow.
Well, Amy is the first character we meet, and she is actually a herbalist. And I found it really interesting to look into the meanings of specific herbs and flowers and their medicinal uses. And historically, you know, they were used much, much more. And we've kind of, well, there's a growing movement, I think, growing interest in them now. But they're quite powerful. And so that is part of her story. She is due to marry Matt, her boyfriend, but 2 weeks before their wedding, he disappears. And there is absolutely no trace of him anywhere. As the police get involved, another woman reports her partner missing, a man meeting the same description as Amy's fiancé. It transpires this man is not at all who Amy thought he was. So I guess the book came from the idea of these two quite contrasting female characters, with this man in the middle of them, and set against the symbolism of flowers and herbs and Sussex countryside, really.
Interesting. So did you have the story quite clear in your mind before you started the writing process, or did it kind of come as you were writing?
A bit of both. I think with a thriller, it helps if you have an idea where your plot is going. And I'm not a meticulous planner, and I will inevitably end up with threads at the end that I have to tidy and make sure I've got a consistent, coherent plot, because with a thriller it needs to be tight. But that said, that I was talking to somebody the other day, another author, and I think if you take away spontaneity, you take away creativity to a degree. So my characters always develop as I write, and I think that's probably true for most writers.
Yeah, and it must be nice for you as well as a writer if you can even be a bit surprised as you're writing something, thinking, oh yeah, that's really good, as opposed to just knowing exactly what's going to happen the whole time.
Oh yeah, I mean, it kind of fires you up, really, because otherwise it becomes a kind of mathematical exercise.
Yeah.
And creativity, it comes and goes, and some days it flows and it's just incredible, and other days it's a little bit harder to find. So it's kind of going with that too.
And how about the title? Do you leave the title till last, or think of it at the beginning?
I generally come up with a working title. And funny you ask, because this book started out with a very different title for a very good reason. And it was actually my editor at Avon who suggested this title, The Vow, which absolutely fits it perfectly and is, I guess, infinitely more commercial than the one I had, which was Blood Flowers, which sounds a bit like a horror movie. But one of the incidents near the beginning of the book is when the character Amy comes back home one evening, and it's kind of getting dark, and she can see there's something on her doorstep, and it's a huge bouquet of red and white flowers, hence the flower on the front of the book.
Ah, yeah.
And she takes it inside, and you know how flowers are sometimes delivered in little bags of water tied around the stems?
Yeah.
And anyway, when she dismantles this bouquet, which actually she knocks it onto the floor, and it isn't water in the bag, it's blood. So that's quite a kind of creepy thing, which a whole lot more spins off from that, and actually, yeah, which I can't give too much away about.
No, absolutely. And when you write a book, can you see it? Can you see the characters? Can you imagine it being on the screen, either as a TV series or as a film?
I do visualise it. I'm a very visual writer, so I see the settings, I see the people, I kind of imagine what they wear, their body language, just everything that goes with someone's personality. And I kind of has to work for me visually as well as words on paper.
That makes sense.
So, yeah.
Well, if people want to get a copy of The Vow, it's available to buy on our website in the bookshop section on tre.radio. It's by Debbie Howells, who we've been chatting to. Debbie, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much, Hannah. Lovely to talk to you.
TRE. Online, on mobile, on the